Okay, so in this session we're going to have a look at the kind of stoves that you might take with you on your expedition. I've got 3 different types of stoves here, but of course, as with all of these bits of equipment, there are all manner of different ones that you can get. So these are just 3 examples that we're going to have a look at today. And your choice of stove is going to depend on a few different things. So how many people do you need to cook for? And also, quite importantly, how does your food cook? So we've got this kind of food here, which is just add water. So things like instant couscous, cup of soups, even just your cup of tea or your hot chocolate. You just heat the water in your stove and then add it to your food. You've then got things like boil in the bag. So we're not actually cooking directly in the pan, but we're going to put this in a pan of water and heat that through. And then we've got types of foods that actually need cooking in the pan. So we'd empty these out. Got some noodles, some pasta and sauce. We'd empty that out into a pan and cook it in the pan. So that might also affect which stove is best for you. So obviously stoves can be quite dangerous if not handled correctly, so there are quite a lot of safety things that we need to think about. And there are some general safety items that will apply to pretty much all stoves, and there are some more specific safety considerations that we'll look at when we look at each stove. So the first safety thing is to make sure that you're putting your stove on a stable surface. Here I've got them all on a nice stable patio. Okay, I've got quite a nice large base on most of them. This one's got some feet, which is going to keep it nice and stable, and the tranche over here is has got a very wide base, so that's going to stay stable. But if, for example, I didn't have these feet, this could become a lot more unstable, or if I had it on a less stable piece of ground. Next safety thing is to know your stove. So if you've been practicing with this kind of stove and then you get issued this one when you go out on your expedition, you need to tell us. You need to say that you don't know how to use that stove, and either we'll issue you with the one you know, or we will show you how to use the other kind of stove. Okay, number 3, keep any unused fuel well away from the stove. So on these ones we've got fuel attached at the bottom, but if I had a spare canister that I was keeping for when that one runs out, I'd make sure that that's well away from our lit stoves. With a tranche we've got liquid fuel, which comes in a bottle, which I'll show you when we get onto the tranche. Make sure that that is a good long distance away in a safe place. And we also need to carry the fuel separately to our food and not attached to our stove. So don't carry this stove like this, attached together. Take the 2 pieces apart and carry them separately. You should always be cooking at least 2 meters away from your tents or anything else that's flammable. Never ever try and cook in your tent, however terrible the weather is. Not only could you set your tent on fire, but you're going to be releasing dangerous gases that are not good in an enclosed space. So always be cooking outside, at least a couple of meters away from anything flammable, including any flammable clothing. So make sure you've got, you're not wearing any loose clothing, that long hair is tied away, and you haven't got any flammable nylon clothing on. And when you've finished cooking your dinner or your breakfast, make sure that your stove has got a nice amount of time to cool down so that it's nice and cold before you pack it away to put it either in your tent or in your bag to carry on with your walking. So the first stove we're going to look at is this very simple basic gas stove. So this will be quite cheap, and it's also very small and compact to carry. So it's just a simple gas stove. It's got some little supports for your pans, so we can pull them out, so that we've got a nice wide support for the pan. Okay, and then make sure they're back down in the slot so that they're secure, so your pan doesn't fall off and drop boiling water on you. And there you've got a nice secure support for your pan. and there's your burner. So the way that this works is when we put it on to the gas canister, we can then turn this handle, which will release the gas, and then we can light it. Now with these, you will either have a little clicker on it which will provide a spark and light the gas. This one doesn't have it, it's a very simple basic one, and also bear in mind that those can break, so we'll have to use something else to light the gas. Now if I were to use a lighter, see how close my thumb would be to that flame once it had lit. So do not use a lighter to light any of these stoves. I'm going to use safety matches, and then that will mean that my fingers are at least a reasonable distance away when I light that. Okay, in terms of the gas, we need to get one that is self-sealable or resealable after you've used it once. So you'll get these ones that have got a little valve in them, so that when you first use it, it'll open that valve, but then when you take it back off, it will seal itself so that you can then carry that separately. You don't want the ones that pierce it, because then you can't take them apart and you can't carry them safely. And if it were to accidentally come apart, then you'd have a gas canister spewing gas everywhere. So you must get ones that are resealable, that click onto here. You've also got to check what kind of attachment you've got. So this one just pops on, it doesn't have any sort of thread, you don't screw it on, it just pushes on. So make sure that your canister matches your stove. Okay, so nice and firmly push that onto there. See, that's attached, ready to go. Okay, and normally you're going to use mess tins with this kind of thing. So they've got their own handle so that you're not having to touch any hot surfaces, and that will just balance nicely on there. Mess tins come in twos, so what you can do is pop your second one on top as a bit of a lid, so that you can keep a bit of the heat in, and it will help the water to boil more quickly. Okay, so to light this one, as we said, we're going to use matches. Make sure that people around you know that you're going to be lighting a stove. If somebody's playing with a frisbee or something, make sure they're not going to be throwing it at you, so that your stove falls over and burns you. So what I'm going to do is turn this on, and then as quickly as I can, so that I don't get too much gas escaping, I'm going to light a match and light it. Okay, and I'm not sure if you can see on camera, but if I turn it up a bit, you can probably hear it. And then turn it all the way off when I want to turn it off, so it's nice and firmly off, and then leave that, not going to touch it until it's nice and cool and I can pack it away safely when I finish using it. So next up we've got a jet boil, which is obviously the brand name, and this is pretty much works the same as the previous stove. It's a gas stove, but it's made so that it boils water very quickly, and we'll see that there's actually pros and cons to that. So let's have a look. It all comes in one big container, so this has got the pan itself and all the stuff inside it. We open that up, okay, so we've got a burner just like we did on the previous one, and it attaches to a gas canister. Again, it's a self-sealing one or resealing one, so you can see, or you might be able to see, the valve in there, so it closes back up when I take this off, so the gas doesn't leak everywhere. And this particular one is a screw on, so you have to screw that into there to make sure it's nicely securely attached. Okay, so first thing I want to do is flick out the gas valve, so that's what I need to turn the gas on. and then I'm going to attach it to here. You might hear a bit of a hiss as you turn it. That's just the gas escaping as it attaches. Okay, nice and firmly on. And this one does have a clicker, so as long as that's still working, I shouldn't need to use a match, but I'd always have some matches with me just in case. And then the pot slots on, so there's some little slots that you put it on and then twist, and then it's nice and securely on. And again, make sure it's somewhere stable, so it does come with a stand. Make sure that's securely in there, like that, and then it's a bit more stable. And then you've got a lid, obviously, to help it boil quicker. So to light this, I'm going to turn the gas valve and then press the button. Now I'm actually going to do this with the cup attached, because then I've got less time with a big naked flame and less likely to injure myself. So put the cup on. I've actually put a little bit of water in just to make sure that I'm not burning off a dry cup. Okay, and then turn that. There we go. Nice big flame in there. Turn it off so I don't waste it. Now, stoves like this almost have a downfall of being too powerful. It's really good for boiling some water really quickly. So if we were going to do it for our instant couscous or a cup of soup, a cup of tea, coffee, hot chocolate, then it's brilliant. It does boil it really quick, and you can have that meal really quickly. When it starts to have a downfall is where you try and make more complicated meals. So you can do boil in the bags, but I have heard tales of them exploding in there because it's so powerful, and even right down on the bottom setting, these pop. I say exploding, that's a bit over the top, but they pop, they make a mess. And there's also a maximum fill line in here. Okay, so the maximum fill line is only about halfway up there. So if I tried to put a boil in the bag in there, it would actually only have water halfway up it. So it's not actually great for boiling the bags. For meals like this, where I have to put that in, add water, keep stirring, again, it's sometimes a bit too powerful. And even if I keep stirring it constantly, it might burn to the bottom. Okay, so it's really good for boiling some water super quickly. So we have these, if we go out on a walk and we want a cup of tea halfway up a mountain, then these are really good for that. But actually, for being your only source of cooking out on an expedition, you just have to be very careful that you're not burning things, that you're not overcooking your boiling bags and stuff. Now you can get adapters, which I haven't actually used before, but you can get an adapter that goes over that, and you can then put other kinds of saucepans on, which might mean that you could cook your other types of food a little bit more easily. But again, bearing in mind it's a very strong flame, I've been told that mess tins, it can actually burn through them because they're aluminium and you've got a very strong flame there. Okay, so make sure you've got a very sturdy pan if you're going to do that. You can get bigger versions of this pot, but they're almost as expensive again. But you can get them if you were to want to cook your proper meals on this, then you can get different kinds of pans. But the main thing about this, in terms of that, is that it is quite expensive. So your small stove that I showed first, this one, I think that's probably £5 or £10 plus gas. This is about 100, and then the bigger pot to cook bigger meals in is another maybe £60. So bear that in mind. It's very expensive, it is very powerful, it does boil water very quickly, but it doesn't necessarily do everything that you want it to do. Okay, and the last one I'm going to show you is called a trangia. They normally come rather neater than this. This was in stores. I think it's a bit of a mishmash of several different ones, so maybe ones that don't quite fit together. But you can see it's a lot bigger, but it's got everything in there, and you can cook for a good few people on it. So let's have a look at what there is. So there's a frying pan. We've got some lids. You could also use them as other pans. Okay, so a couple of lids. Oh, I actually forgot to put one of the pans back in it. That was just next to me. That would fit in there. Let's just show you that. Okay, fits beautifully. Okay, so we've got a couple of pans. You have got a kettle if you want to take that with you. This one hasn't actually got a lid. So a couple of pans. And then these two pieces are the main body of the trangia, and that's actually what we're going to put the burner into. So I'll put it together shortly when I've showed you all the pieces. And then in here we've got the burner. So this is what we put the fuel into. Put the fuel in there. And pretty important is a handle. So whenever you're going to pick up these pans, make sure you use the handle, don't burn yourself. You can also use it to flick down the stands, things like that. If you forgot to flick them down before it got hot, you take them up after it gets hot. Okay, so the way that this works, get these out of the way. This is our base, and it's got lots of nice holes to let the air through so that we've got air circulation for our burner. Okay, make sure it's on a nice secure base. Okay, nice and stable. And then this one slots on top of there, and that is going to stop the wind getting in and blowing our flame out. Okay, these little supports then go down so that we can put a pan on top of our burner. Okay, and our burner goes in there. Okay, there'll be a flame in there. You can put your pan on top. Then you might put a lid on it so that it cooks nicely. Okay, so you can see these are some quite big pans, so I would be able to cook maybe some pasta for the whole group. If I was maybe cooking some pasta and bean feast, maybe. Could do the pasta in there, set it aside, get my other pan, cook a couple of sachets of bean feast, and that would maybe feed my whole team. So yes, it is a big beast, but you can cook for everyone. Probably wouldn't personally take the kettle with me, but you can if you want. If you've got the lid, then it does boil the water fairly quickly. Okay, so there's some very different safety things with this type of stove. So here's your burner, and what we use in that is a fuel called methylated spirits. And when you're cooking with a trangia, you must always make sure that your fuel is kept at least 10 feet away from your cooking. So to show you the mess, I'm going to keep to that good practice, and I've put it at the other side of my patio. Okay, so methylated spirits is this purple liquid here. Now it's not only used as a fuel, okay, you can actually use it for cleaning, to clean glass, okay, but we're going to use it as a fuel for our stove. Now this is how it comes in a clear plastic bottle, and although it's a fairly sturdy bottle, if I had that in my bag and maybe I sat on my bag, I was quite tired, I just wanted to sit down, and that split, I've now got a load of highly flammable liquid all over my stuff. Okay, we've got lots of warnings about it being flammable, so we don't carry it in this. We transfer it into one of these safety bottles. So I'm going to get rid of this. Let's not going to look at this anymore. As soon as we buy it, we're going to transfer it into a safety bottle. So Just check that that's nicely done up. Okay, so this is a proper Trangia safety bottle and it's DOV approved. So this is much thicker plastic, and it's also got a safe pour valve at the top, which I'll show you how to use in a minute. Now, when we are going to fill up our burner, we always take our burner to the place where we've got fuel. Never take your fuel to a hot stove, okay, because the meths in here actually burns quite invisible. Then you wouldn't be able to see the meths burning. Okay, so you need to make sure that your burner is nice and cold before you try and refill it. But I know that this is cool because I haven't even started cooking yet, so I've taken this to my fuel. So we're going to carefully open this. So it's a screw top, and then tip it over and then push the top, and that will let the meths come out into your burner. Okay, carefully pick it back up and screw it back up. Now, if you have any spillage of meths, wipe it up with some tissue and then put that tissue somewhere away from where you are burning, okay, until everything has evaporated off, and then you can bin it. Okay, don't bin it straight away before the meths has evaporated off, just in case somebody puts a lit cigarette or something stupid in the bin. Okay, so I've done this really quite far away from my cooking area, and now I can very carefully transport this back over to where I'm going to cook. So I've put my burner back in there with the meths in, and what I'm now going to do is light it from the side. So if I had this on here and I tried to light it, I'd be lighting it from above, and that flame would then potentially burn me. So take the guard off and then light it from the side. Okay, and that is actually lit. You can't see it, okay? It is a clear flame, so I might want to test if it's lit. So I could get a piece of paper or a piece of grass. Got a leaf. Okay, and that is burning. So I can see that that is lit. But when I'm not holding something over it, I cannot actually see. And on video you might not believe me, but that is lit and there is a clear flame in there. Okay, so you've got to be very aware around a Trangia as to whether or not it's lit. Now, you can probably see the purple fuel in there. Okay, even when I've finished cooking, I need to wait till all of that purple fuel is burnt off. So if I put too much in, tough, I've got to leave it in there. I've got to keep an eye on my stove to make sure it's nice and safe. Okay, I'm going to put this round now so that it's nicely contained. And then I can start cooking my dinner. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a competition to see which of these boils half a litre of water quickest. So I'll show you how to safely put something on each of these stoves. So I've got my Trangia nicely burning there. I'm using my little handle to put this over. Then I'm going to put a lid on. Okay, I've got these slightly spaced apart, just so that they're safe. Okay, so turning the gas on, and then quickly getting a match to it. Put that on. Make sure it's nice and steady, stable. I can turn that right up. Put my other one on top as a lid. And then finally, you should set the jet boil going. go. Turn that up and we will see how long these take. So it's been about a minute and the jet boil has this nice indicator on the side, so we can see that that's already boiling. And once this all gets yellow, then we're pretty happy that that's fully boiled. And you can see in there it's getting quite bubbly. That's pretty nice and hot in our jet boil. Turn that off. So our basic gas is getting there, simmering. Take a bit longer until it's fully boiled. And then Trangia, that's simmering away nicely as well. Take a bit longer to be boiled. Okay, it's been about 3 minutes and this one is nicely boiling away there, so we can either add that to our coffee or put our boil in the bag, give it 10 minutes to nicely heat our food up, or add our dry pasta and start cooking that. So we'll turn that one off. Okay, and then and just still pottering away here, and that's boiling as well. So there's actually not a huge amount in it. The jet boil wins pretty quickly, but the other two are better for actually cooking some real food in. Now this flame is still going, and you can actually see it at the moment because it's a little bit dirty in there. And remember, we need to let that burn out. Now I can see in there that there's not too much meths left in there. It will probably be burning for another sort of 5-10 minutes. So make sure that nobody goes close to it that doesn't know that it's burning, and also that you, even once it's finished burning, you wait for it to cool down nicely. Now if you were halfway through cooking and it ran out of fuel and stopped burning, then you're going to have to wait until that burner is fully cooled down and you can pick it up and take it to your fueling area. So make sure you put enough meths in to start with, rather than having to do that, because all of your food will have cooled down by the time you're able to do that as well. So making sure that you're not touching it before the flame has completely stopped, it's finished burning, it's burned off all the meths, and that the burner itself is fully cooled down. So I'm going to take that burner to the fueling station, and to do so the burner needs to be nice and cool so that I can safely refill it. Okay, so those are our stoves. There's a few different ones to choose from, and it depends how many people you're cooking for, maybe how much you can afford, how heavy it's going to be, and we will definitely do a cooking lesson on this. You can't go out and do your expedition until you have physically practiced using these stoves, and we can see that you can use them safely. So we'll make sure we do that when we get back to squadron, so that you can use them safely and decide what kind of one you want to take.